one of the things I try to get students to do is instead of just seeing anatomy as a two-dimensional thing that's on a page in front of you, I like to try and see it as a three-dimensional. In other words, a joint has got depth, it's got width, it's got height, it's got aspects on the inside of the joint, on the outside of the joint. So this is where what I tend to teach and what I tend to call it is functional anatomy. This is why we have a section in this course called functional anatomy. So it is really learning how the anatomy works, not just what it looks like, but how it works. In other words, where does this nerve supply come from? Let's just talk about that one first. For instance, somebody who has a human being who has sciatic pain, it's going to have pain running down the back of their leg, down through the sciatic nerve in the thigh. At the back of the knee, the sciatic nerve splits into the posterior and the anterior tibial nerves. The anterior tibial nerve, or the peroneal nerve, supplies those muscles that lift the foot or lift the toes. So in other words, it's those muscles that would lift the lower limb of the dog's leg forwards, upwards, if you like. And the foot would grip the ground with the posterior tibial nerve, which is running all the way down. It's a sensory nerve at that point. But we know full well that the problem is not in the dog's leg. It's up in the human's leg. The problem is in the human's back. So what we need to do is to learn where the wiring comes from. So that's the point of neurology and neuroanatomy. If we understand from the muscular point of view, the origin and insertion, it'll give us a clue of the action. Now, the action is what's important. Unless you're treating with, from a physiotherapy sense, with electrotherapy, laser or ultrasound, also, they're both very, very useful tools. They tend to be more physiotherapy than osteopathy, but we tend to introduce them into osteopathy because they're useful. We don't ignore anything that's useful at all. We tend to bring it in and include it in what we do. But by learning the anatomy, we understand, therefore, the function of that anatomy. So when you're learning, instead of just trying to see it as a huge mountain that you may or may not be able to climb, it's like looking at the Himalayas. You've got thousands of mountains. You can only climb one at a time. You might not even get to the top of that. So the idea of anatomy being a huge subject, you need to split it up into bite-sized chunks, which is what we try and do in the way this course is structured.